Hi, and welcome to my YouTube channel. This is my second video, but my first watercolor video. I've got a few supplies that you need. You don't have to have these exact ones, but these are the lower end. And I'll talk to you about each one as we go. First is masking tape. You can buy that anywhere, hardware store, maybe you have some at home. Paper towels are great to have. You can use Kleenex. You need to have something to tape your project to, which I use a clipboard. You can use a table or a piece of wood, but sometimes the tape doesn't stick to wood very well. You need paints. This is a really good starter set. Runs around $20 at Michael's. It's by Prang. Very nice set. Definitely a huge step up from like Crayola watercolors. And even better than like the Artist Loft paints. They're a semi-wet palette and paint, and it really goes well. You also need some paper, 140-pound heavyweight watercolor. This is the least expensive that I found. It is cold press, and this tablet's only $6. If you really like watercolor, there's definitely a lot more options, but this is a good entry level. These are Artist Loft brush set. I got it for about $15. I haven't seen this current set at Michael's right now, but they have similar sets. This has a really great large one it's really great for getting stuff wet. Has several rounds, even has a filbert. That's what intrigued me with this set. I don't use my flats very much. In watercolor, I use lots of rounds. And the flat is great on larger projects. It's also handy to have a pencil and some Q-tips for mistakes or something. Water, two of them, one for clean water, one for dirty. Never hurts to have a cup of tea. And we're ready to get started. So this is our project for today. This is my very first watercolor. We're going to be using blues and greens and blacks, although I may change my mind and go for blue for the foreground because I like blue. This was a YouTube tutorial. I'll try and find the link and add that. So this is a very unused Prang set I bought for my kids, but actually heard such great reviews I decided to try it myself. I did this little project before I started my video where I laid out each color. And there's some gorgeous colors in this set. Really intense pigments. The purples, the blues, even the reds are just really nice. So I'm in shock that a $20 set of paints, which I only got for $10 because I used their coupon, Awesome Sauce coupon. Paper has a right side and a wrong side with watercolor. The smooth side is the wrong side. And watercolor paper loves to buckle. So I have recently found that if you wet the back side first, it really lessens how much it buckles. So I'm going to tape down the top like so. And you might want to activate your colors that you're going to use before you start doing this. So you go along and drop water in. I already did that into the colors you're going to use. Sorry for my weird voice. I'm definitely having some problems with it today. Cup of chamomile tea and some honey, and everything's great. All right, so my big fat wide brush, I'm going to liberally apply water. I'm trying not to splash it onto my surface that I'm going to tape on because that doesn't help. It won't stick very well if it's wet. So, and as you see, this paper, some people even do this and kind of get it so wet that it sticks to the surface. But if I don't let it stick, you can see this baby curling up like a cat by a fireplace. So we don't really want that. But so I'm going to give it a little tug. And you can actually feel the paper give just a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to apply tape to the bottom. This is called stretching watercolor paper. And I am not an expert in this. I'm just starting to learn things about that. Now I'm going to get the top a bit wet. I'm going to loosen this up so you can see what it does. So before I apply it, it was really curly, and it's already starting to uncurl. I think what it is it spreads. gets bigger when you get it wet as the water gets into the pores of the paper. So now it's actually kind of curling. This part's lifting up right here. So now I'm going to pull and tape it down. And again, I have paint on my hands. At least that's the dark part. Pull and tape. Pull and tape. And if all goes well, that should really lessen how much buckling this paper will do while I'm painting. It took me months to figure this out, and I had so many paintings with these wonky hills and valleys all the way across, and then all your paint runs to the valleys. It's like it's afraid of the sun or something. Okay, so we're all taped. It might help to kind of push the paper out before you tape it because it's already buckling. Oh, lovely! Isn't that lovely? Okay, with watercolor, you can do a lot by getting it wet right away, and then taking your paper towel and attacking it. Now it's not going to go gone. So wash your hands before you paint. I got black from making this lovely thing. Okay. So, it might be a good idea to take your handy dandy pencil and give yourself an idea of where your land's going to start. Now, thirds are appealing to the eye, so your land should take up 2/3 or 1/3. So this is going to take up 1/3. So I'm just going to kind of remind myself ever so lightly of where I want my land to start. Okay, now I'm going to get it wet again. I know, water, 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 water. So this is always the clean water. But I'm not going to go below that land line. Now I'm going to take my big round, because I want to put quite a bit of color on right away. And I'm going to get it wet. And the very first color part in this is light. So we're going to do what's called a wash. And this is going to be a light wash. And I think I'm going to do a combination of the lightest green and the lighter blue. So I'm going to start with this green. So at this point, I'm going to want to have more water than paint. So I'm going to be pretty liberal with my water. And we want this to just kind of be happy and spreading all over the place. Lovely green. Actually, I don't like green. I don't like green. I like a happy green like this. And now I'm going to dirty water first, clean water second. Now I'm going to use the lighter blue. No, wrong blue. The pan. That's why you do this, because what's in there doesn't look like what you want all the time. All right, so now I'm going to kind of do a little bit on either side of this. So basically what I'm doing right now is getting the colors where I want them. And now I'm going to go for the darker green, which is this one. And I'm going to kind of just do a little bit of this. And maybe bring a little bit across here like that. And now I'm going to go for the dark blue. This set doesn't have a really, really dark blue, which I would kind of miss. Like a Prussian blue. Oh, I'm in love with Prussian blue. It is so good for so many things. This is not bad, especially if you use a lot of it. You know, intense. Whoops, I went into dirty water. But my water's blue, so it's not so bad. Oh, my clean water's getting dirty. Yeah. I'm not that great at keeping my water separate. Okay, so now I've got the water kind of where I want it, so I'm going to, I do have some buckling here. If you get a lot of buckling, so I'm just going to kind of randomly kind of move the paint around. Drawing it in from the sides. And move the pigment around. And then if you get to places where the pigment's really wanting to, and you want to leave the center part kind of alone, you want it to stay light, You can take your brush, clean it off, and then dry it on your paper towel and just run it along those edges where the paint likes to hang out. And it'll actually draw up that extra water. A couple other techniques for picking up too much paint is, another thing too, is to kind of get it off your tape, because it will come back on your paint and haunt you. Now see, I ran it on the paper, you can see how well it lifted up. So that's one way to actually lift paint. So I'm gonna get my brush just a tiny bit wet and just go along here so I don't have that nice distinct line along the tape. And you can even like pull it in from the sides. See, I don't have it right to the corner there either. So you can do a little more fussing. Don't want to cover that nice light color. Now if you do feel like you've covered that middle too much, you can come in and lift with your paper towel. Just keep getting fresh surfaces, because otherwise you'll come in and you'll get the dark blue on the yellow or the green in the middle. And we really want this middle thing to kind of stay light. I don't know if this is supposed to be like a Northern Lights or just fading sun. I think it's supposed to be more like a fading sun. Now I'm coming in with just a wet brush, no pigment. I'm just doing a little more blending. And because I didn't really like how it looked down here, so I'm going to do like that and then pick it up. And you can also, like, let's say I want it to look more like a sun down here. I'm going to grab some of my yellow. What you can do is just bring in some pretty intense pigment and let it sit on your paper, because that pigment actually gets absorbed by the paper and won't go away. Then you can diffuse the edges, move the paint a little bit. You know, if you wanted to bring a little more yellow up into those colors, just experiment, play with your paint, see where it goes, be adventurous. Okay, so that kind of gives me more muted, but I still want to have a bit of a brighter appearance at the bottom here, so I'm going to do a little dabbing and very lightly as I go farther out. There. So that is the top half of our painting. So real quick, I'm going to blow dry this and see if I'm happy. Acrylic paints tend to dry darker than what they were, and watercolor paints dry lighter. And with watercolor, that means you can go back in and add a second layer if you feel like it wasn't dark enough. And before we do land, we are going to go in and put some stars in the sky. There's one thing I do use the flats for, because they tend to just be a little less, or more, they spring back better. That's the word I'm looking for. Okay, I don't have clean water. Oh, I guess my water bottle's going to take over now. So here we go. That's another thing you can keep on hand, is a spare bottle of water, so you can get your fresh clean water, because who wants to put blue in your white, right? All right, so I'm going to be doing this with the white watercolor paint, which will tend to like soak into the surface. So if you can get yourself white acrylic paint or white gouache, that works way better, because then it doesn't absorb into the thing. So what you want is a pretty wet brush. And there's different techniques. Some people use toothbrushes, but I'm just going to hit this on my hand and see how it flings paint off. But it kind of does that, not like that. So I'm going to try and lift that up. Hopefully that won't be so obvious next time. So maybe I'll do it more off here, so I just get the drops and not the full lines. And if you like lots of stars, do lots of stars. Especially toward the edge where it's darker, because that's where your stars would have been more visible. but you can see how they're absorbing in. And if the watercolor is your only option, and you can go back in with a tiny brush with the white and get more pigment down. Just don't have your brush real wet. This is some really soft paint, by the way, because as I'm going along the edge, it's actually coming loose, which can be a good thing, because then you get really high pigmented on your paint brush. Okay, so I'm going to go in and just touch up some of these. I guess that spot was a little wetter. And having a bit of a glow around your things isn't such a bad idea. I mean, stars have kind of a little glow, right? So some of these are standing out better than others. And it definitely diffuses where the paint was still wet. And now if I do it, it's like doing that whole cauliflower thing. I think there's a name for it. Like a real name. And I'm adding a few larger ones here and there, just because I can. And I'm not sure what to do with that up there. I think I might leave them. I could fuss with it a lot. I could put the blue back on. Well, maybe I'll do that, because that's a teaching moment. I homeschooled my kids, so we had teaching moments. And that was the dark blue on the edge. So I'm going to come in with my dark blue. And a little bit of the dark green maybe, to get that same color effect. And maybe I'll come in when that's really dry and put a few stars in by hand. Okay, so we are now ready to move on to the land. All right, so I think I will go with black since that was the original one. You can put in as many land forms as you'd like. I'd recommend a medium-sized brush. If you have bigger paper, you could use this brush, but for learning, the smaller might be better. But remember, this is all dry now, so we got to go in and get our paper wet. And try not to get right up to the margin of your other paper, because you don't want those colors spreading into your black too much. Now, I did have to get my yellow wet because I got crazy. So I'm going to go in and just dab that up and then get it wet again, because that lifts some of the paint off the surface. Okay, so we're all nice and wet, and just pretend I didn't put black on there, okay? All right, so here's my black. Mixy. Get good pigment into there. And the back mountains are going to be more hazy than the forward mountains. So we're going to definitely want to keep that in mind. I just love watching paint run. Isn't that cool? Cool. Okay, so I've got a lot of water on here and a lot of black. Too much, really. Too wet, too much paint. But that's fixable, right? One thing I like to do is to take it and just lay it right across and run my fingers. Poof! Fixed. All better. Okay, so let's try that again. What I like to do is have less paint on my brush. So I'm going to take it from the side here so my brush is highly pigmented. And I'm going to draw my backward mountain, the farthest away mountain. And you can just make it up as you go. You don't have to follow anything. There was nothing to start with, and just use your imagination. What do your mountains look like far away? Around here, the farther they are away, the pointier they are, unless you're talking Mount Baker or Mount Rainier. Of course, they're so rounded because they're full of themselves, because they're volcanoes, you know, they can be special that way. So what I want is quite a bit of pigment delivered right to the edge, so we have a nice border. And then I'm going to add water to my brush so we can create that misty look. So what we're going to do is draw it down, get it wet, And I'm not going to be too concerned with my clean water now because guess what? We're only using black. If you're into a single color monochrome painting, it's not so crazy crisis either. Okay, so now I'm going to come in with a fresh side and start blotting this up so we have that misty look. Now the bottom I'm really hitting hard, and I'm going to do a little bit lighter so it's more like the top of the mist, and it might not be perfectly roundish and it might not be perfectly flat. So, and this is kind of cool. Do you see what happened there? So another thing you can do now at this point, tiny bit of black. I would like to create this mountain to actually come down in front of those. You see that? So what I'm going to do is start my paintbrush off just a little bit, tiny bit of controlled water, and I'm going to come in and push my paint up. This water paper is a little different than what I'm used to. It's kind of coming apart. Wow, that's weird. This is my paper towel coming off. Okay, so I'm not going to be able to do what I normally do. So I'm going to try and just do that with a little more pigment on my brush. I notice this doesn't really go to the end of the page very well. This is another place where you can have a little more control. Bring in some water and adjust where your paint is. Crayola mist up. This paper is definitely wanting to, call it break down, and I don't really like that. But maybe I'm doing techniques that are too advanced for this paper. So keep that in mind. If you can do a lot of lifting, this might not be the best paper for you. Okay, so that's our first line of mountains. So now we're going to go in again with less paint to start with, and we're going to draw. See, there's some extra mountains here, so I'm not exactly going to stick with that painting. So I don't really like how this turned out, so my next hill is going to come in and come down like this. And so I want to bring in more paint at the top edge. Like that, remember? And then water, draw it down, lift it up. Okay, I'm going to go in with a light. This is another way to lift. Make your brush really dry. I kind of talked about this, but now we can use that to create this mist. And what I've noticed, most mist is like flat. It tends to just hang out in those valleys, so try and keep your mist flat. Maybe not perfectly flat. I mean, they're like clouds on the ground. Okay, this is definitely too much dark up here, so I'm going to go in and get it wet just below the edges. Fresh paper towel, and dab some of that up, see if I can get more of an edge. There, see, that worked nicely. Okay, so now we're going to the other side, and we're going to put a little steeper mountain over here. So we're going to start up here, come down, and then come down here. So I want it to cover right at the end of this guy here. So this guy is pretty big. Going to add a little bit more pigment right along the lines to work with. Not too much, so I did that before. We all learned how that went. Okay, dry my brush off, get a controlled amount of water, draw this down. Black is kind of hard to work with compared to like blue or green. It is not as transparent, so that might be something to keep in mind You might try this whole thing and do blue, a dark blue mountain. If you have Prussian blue or Payne's gray, that would be perfect. Payne's gray, if you didn't know, is actually a combination of blue and black. I'm not sure which blue. I'm thinking it's phthalo blue. You know, more of a purple blue, but I'd have to look that up to be sure. Okay, so now I'm going to lift this with my paper towel. Now the closer the mountains are, the darker they should be. So I'm not going to do as much lifting on this one, but I do want that element of fog across the bottom. All right, so now I like to call these the framing mountains. These are going to come in from either side. These are going to be really close, like maybe you're standing at the crest of one of these. So these are going to be pretty much all dark. Just maybe the slightest hint of fading at the bottom, but not much, because you're like standing on this. And so these might be more rounded, and I did not wait for my paint to dry enough on that side. It's kind of nice to go side to side. So as you see, I do not have a clean, crisp line right there. So I'm going to try to create that by doing the dry brush technique. And I can come back in later too as well. And fix up that line a little bit maybe. Now, I don't want my fog to look quite like that. So I'm going to take a little more off to match that. Again, this paper's breaking down. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do just to help myself out is I'm going to take a part of this paper that's clean and just soak up some paper here, some wetness off the paper, and give myself a fresh start. Okay, now I'm going to try this again with a little less water. Less water, more pigment. And draw this line again, see if we can get a more crisp line. I'm going to have it come down from the side a little too. After all, this is my world, as the happy painter Bob Ross would say. Put in whatever you want. I love his stuff. You know, happy little tree, needs a little happy friend. Who doesn't need a happy friend, right? And we will put some happy trees in this. Now, it's not really going right up to the paper here, and I don't like to see that white standing out. Like, here I am, see me. So I'm kind of going along the edges. All right. The last framing mountain. Okay, so now we got to have one coming in from this side. This one can be, probably should have been more forward. So really don't want that much white showing up. So maybe these are all just one big happy hill, not two separate ones. I think I'm happy with that. Right? Maybe you're in your car, standing on the side of the road, big cliff between you and these mountains, and this is just one long foothill. Getting more pigment to really get it into that bottom part. Okay. I think just a little more value, a little more pigment down the corner. Because we really want the corners to be the darkest. While we wait for that to dry, I'm going to go in. Ooh, no clean water. But we'll see. All right, we'll do this again. I'll pour it in my other cup. Okay, this is a new staple to my video paintings because I can't go run to the sink. Okay. All right, I'm going to go back to my white and see if I can put that on there without it. Oh, look at that. Nice and dry. There we go. Some of these are the ones that spread. Maybe I'll put a little center dot on them. Some of them definitely disappeared to this diffuse. Maybe their nebula is really far away, right? Could be. I don't know a whole lot about space. Okay, so that makes me happy. Those happy little stars. Maybe you want to do a comet. Hey, let's do a comet. Okay, so I'm going to take a little bit here and put a drop of white right here. And then I'm just going to make this happy little streak away from it. I'm going to turn it so that I can do this better with my... Now, where did I put that star? Guess I'm making another one. Okay, so here's my little comet. Now I'm going to turn it around. Do a tail this way. Ooh. And now I need a little more. Make more of a comet part here. Flat, well. But it's going up, so I'd say it's a comet. So shooting star maybe would look more like this. Right? And then you can also do, like, if you had a finer pen, you better do the little, like that. So there's different things you can do with stars. All right, so I'm going to go to my smallest paintbrush of this set, and we're going to start putting some trees on. Now, at the very distance, you're not going to see any trees, so we're not going to worry about that. But in this second to the farthest hill, you might see a hint of trees. So I'm going to just do little lines. Whoops. Smaller paintbrush, yeah, would have been good. So we're just making like little sticks of trees, just the idea of a tree. And maybe you can have it go down like this. Maybe the trees aren't all over top of this. Now remember, this is mist, so you don't want your trees to get down in the mist. Not the mist, because mist is scary. Okay, and this tree, this one here, might have a little more distinct trees. So not up here maybe, because you know there's the tree line, but maybe down here. Maybe you can just do a hint of a tree, like draw a line and give it a little bumps on either side. And just be really careful, and just a few trees, and then maybe add a few more down, like a hint of them being down. Not just, I mean, trees don't just grow at the crest of a hill, right? They're like all over the hill. Even if it's not a lot of trees, they're not going to all be right at the point that you're looking at from your perspective. So think about the reality of what you see, even if it's completely from your imagination. Because if I look at my first one, good grief, those must be giant trees. But I did at least have them smaller than this, not smaller than that. But I think these are way farther away in this picture than that picture. So these are just tiny little trees. And then we're going to have a little bit more filled out trees on this front land. Like they're going to be maybe this tall. And maybe just a few of them. So, and still not, like I'm not going to whip out a fan brush to do this. It's more just a hint of the tree shape. And after all, it's dark. You can't see details on a tree when it's dark. So I'm just kind of wiggling back and forth and getting wider at the bottom. Now there's trees and painters of trees that like to do these tall, skinny things that never get fatter. I struggle with that because the trees around here get wider at the bottom. So maybe they live in California or something and their trees aren't so wide. So I'll do a nice skinny one here, just as a hats off to those skinny tree painters. I'm not saying the painters are skinny, but who knows, maybe they are. My husband thinks it's better to get Dairy Queen blizzards from people who work there who have a little more fluff because he thinks they're more generous with their blizzards. I don't know if that's true. I think it could be true. But, so maybe skinny painters do paint skinny trees, but I don't think so. I am not a skinny painter, so my trees are never skinny, or rarely skinny. Okay, so just because we're peeking out from the side of the road, we're going to put a tall tree. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yay, got the odd number of trees. So, which side do I like the least? I'm not liking how those trees turn out. So, we're going to have a tall tree on here. Wow, that got fat really fast. I'm a little shaky. Oh, that was terrible. Oh well, it's going to be covered up with the branches. Okay, I could really use my script liner, but I'm sticking with what you can get with one single set. Okay. This will cover up my stars that turned out looking like alien ships as well. Okay, so this tree is going to have a little more detail, hopefully. So you have your little branches at the top, and don't forget the ones coming towards you, of course, right? Because our trees are not 3D, I mean not 2D, they're 3D. So you have one, for example, coming out from the side, and a matching one coming out to this side. But then you've got one that's coming short. It looks shorter because it's coming towards you or away from you. See? And so then you can do your next one. And I may be shaking a little bit, but I'm also trying to shake a little bit because it gives the idea of needles. So I'm just going to work my way down, adding these happy little branches. They don't have to be even because trees are never even. They break off branches in windstorms, and sometimes they just have weird things that happen to their branches, and they look really pathetic. Sometimes they have huge gaps in their branches. As I get down, these larger branches are going to be a little more detailed. Usually the top's straight. That looks really awful. So we're going to have that be a couple branches that overlapped. And probably more full, close to your the trunk of the tree, because you're going to have ones coming towards you and some coming away from you. And trees can be very tedious to do. Oh, need more water. And while I want the branches to really not be see-through, you still need water, I found. Watercolor is watercolor because you need to have the water to transport the pigment. If your brush is too dry, the pigment just won't come off the brush. So there's this nice thing called water control when it comes to paint brushes. But, you know, with practice, you learn it. I learned by my mistakes. You learn by your mistakes. It'd be really good if everybody learned from their mistakes, because repeating mistakes is never a good thing, right? So when I finish this happy little tree, I'll be done. If you want a little more backstory on how I got to be painting, I've got a fairly in-depth description of that on my first acrylic painting. But to talk about my watercolor painting, I started acrylic in April of 2019. It is now December. Sorry, I don't know when it became December. It did. It's November 5. I will be turning 56 next week. And I had no idea until this year that I had any artistic talent at all. And I started with acrylic paints and started dabbling with watercolor paints. Here, look, I'm making a skinny tree. Can't do that. I have to make it bigger. Because in my mind's eye, from North Cascades, we don't have skinny trees. So there you go. I started watercolor in September and didn't think I'd like it, but I really do like it. And it's more portable. I can do it almost anywhere. I don't have to worry so much about staining my clothes or staining the table. It pretty much wipes off with very few exceptions. And I've just recently got a professional level set of paints, and it really is different. But if you don't have much money, just get some Crayola paints and just do some experimenting. This is our painting. The only thing left to do on this is a signature, but it's so black right there. I am not sure that a signature would show up, but I'm going to give it a try. And I hope to, in the next few months, continue to make videos and to kind of chronicle the process that I went through as I learned to paint doing watercolor and acrylics by redoing those early works that I did and talking about what I learned from them. So, what do you think? I think I definitely have more control over where my paint goes. I think I was very leery to have really wet paper. This paper was basically the Artist Loft version, but it was from Hobby Lobby, and I can't remember what it's called, but they are very similar papers. This has, as you can see like the texture of the paper more. So this paper had more texture than this does. I don't see that texture in this, which is kind of nice. I mean, I think this has a better look to it. Like, yeah, look here, it's just smooth. And this here has all these paper lines to it. And I don't think that was really a lot of control issues. Another thing you might notice is I very rarely sign on the right. Most artists sign on the right, but I'm left-handed, so why sign on the right? So hats off to us lefties. Any questions, ask in the comments. Please subscribe and follow my journey. I hope to learn more as I go back and redo these paintings that I did to start with, and love to be able to share what God has given me through revealing my hidden talent of paint. So here's the next time. Oh, wait. I can't just quit here. We have to have the tape removal. This is therapy, I'm telling you. So excuse the noise, but some people will get the tape and put it on their pants or their skin to get it come off easy. But the best way I have found to get tape off is to get it warm. It loosens the adhesion. So here we go. Maybe I'll try and put music over this. Isn't that pretty? That nice white border. Uh-oh. I didn't get it down quite good right there. That happens. It also helps to pull the tape at a 45-degree angle away versus like this. You're more likely to have the paper tear. And you may have noticed my original painting didn't have a border. That's because I cut it off to make it fit inside a frame. Oh, I had a little tear there. I was talking too much, wasn't paying attention. Sometimes that tape doesn't want to come off. Nice and slow, keep it warm. There we go. All done. Dun, da, da, da. What do you think? I think it turned out better than the original. Ta-da! It's definitely different. See you next time.